Welcome back, folks, to the Technical Update Series wrap-up with Michael Colligan and Scott Costa, the esteemed editor of Light TED and TED Mag. Today we're going to discuss Andrea Wilkerson and Sarah Safranik's mining data in tunable lighting controls. And this was actually really interesting about how the data came down and all that, but I'm sure Scott and I are going to talk about it. But before we do, we want to tell you about our friends at Cooper Lighting. Go to COOPERLIGHTING, Cooper Lighting. What's up, Scott?
Not much. Michael, thanks for having me back on again and again, sharing this stuff with the folks from TED. I really appreciate it, using our social media and our lightedmag.com website and everything. I really appreciate you doing what you did with us for this series of 5 streaming sessions. So great stuff today. Really interested in this data mining. We've become such data crazy folks. I mean, let me ask you, again, I'm kind of the guest, but I'm going to ask you some questions. So be ready.
Sure.
Give me, what was your take on, again, they did 3 classrooms, a NICU, and I forgot there was something else, wasn't there?
Yes.
Neonatal intensive care, and there was somebody, regardless.
Classrooms. Yes.
Yeah. What was give me your idea on, sort of, I guess, the scale. Is it enough? Do you think maybe there's more research that needs to be done? What did you take from, I guess, their findings from this? And I know it's initial and they're going to do some other stuff, but what was your take from some of these initial findings?
So I think this is the most encouraging work in the lighting industry that I've seen. And I've spoken to Andrea Wilkerson several times on the podcast. And it's my first time with Sarah, but very impressed with how they go about designing their experiments. And what was most interesting to me is all the best things that they found were all by accident. And so they found out these things when people say mining data, they weren't running an algorithm. They actually went and talked to the people in the field that were using it. So when they're saying mining, well, they're actually physical miners. They're going out there and they're digging into the actual stakeholders that use it. But what really came out to me, which was the one thing that was a massive takeaway after talking to them, was this idea of who is the owner of the space and thus has the right to adjust the lighting controls. And how do you then build the lighting controls for that person? And the final piece to that I found was super interesting was the way that they all engaged with some kind of a switch panel that was on the wall in a location where a light switch would be. Instead of having to download an app on their phone or be on a computer, they just went over to the wall and clicked the switch. And I think the industry can really learn a lot from Andrea and Sarah's work in this space, Scott, about those kind of 3 principles. And so my takeaway is that it is enough. More studies should be done, of course. That's what they do. They're academics. They study stuff. But I think the industry could really run with those lessons, in my mind.
Yeah, we were talking, I was talking with your producer right before we got started again. I'm far from an expert on lighting. I'm a journalist. I can report on lighting, but I can't tell you, the engineering of it. I can't tell you the science in it. So, I understood a good part of it, which was the kids go out to recess. It's crazy time. The weather's great. They're running around like nuts. Then you got to get them settled down to start doing school again. And so you're going to dim the lights. And I understand that part. But I don't understand any other part. Like what happens when they walk in the door? So I don't want to download an app and I don't want to be the decision maker because I'm assuming I'm like a lot of other just normal lay people. I don't know. I don't know what the right lighting is for whatever occasion. How do we teach folks that? How do we get them to that point where they understand? I mean, it's easy to understand. I'm in from recess. It might not be so easy to understand. Hey, we're gonna read history books today. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the right lighting? How do we get to that point where everybody knows it?
Yeah, I think that's where the extension of Andrea and Sarah's work can go. Is not in recognizing that the people actually use them. Oh my God, they use them! Right? That was kind of the thing is that, how can we integrate some of the principles from theatrical lighting into our daily lives to reduce conflict and increase calm and peace and emotional stability? I think that's what's really coming out of this. So for example, in the visiting rooms with the lowering of the Kelvin temperature and dimming the lights, people start looking at their watches and, hey, Mom, it's time to go. I'll see you tomorrow or whatever. Though, instead of having someone intervene. Now, everyone's so obsessed with cost savings, but conflict reduction is also a cost savings, right? And so when the mothers are woken up in the morning with their babies by the lighting system, rather than nurses shaking, hey, it's time to wake up, hey, it's time to wake up. There's no good way to wake people up with a human touch. They would much rather be woken up naturally. And so if we can wake people up and we can get people to move and leave using these types of lighting controls, and we can get kids to settle down a little bit, what else can we do using theatrical techniques? And so what I think needs to happen is we need to get more theatrical people into the general lighting space in order to, they know how to get a crowd to quiet down. Right? They know how to get people to move back into the theater using lighting. And so then we can take those and use them in appropriate and meaningful ways in general lighting environments.
And let's not bury this. I think there's a massive cost savings to teaching our children how to learn, as opposed to never knowing how to do math, which means you never learn how to be an engineer. You know what I'm saying? So let's not pull out of the equation the fact that the proper lighting, the proper environment, the proper calmness means that they're actually picking up and understanding what these teachers are telling them. And so then they become productive teenagers, and then hopefully they become productive young adults, and then they become productive members of the workforce and beyond. And if you don't have if it doesn't start at the beginning, it doesn't get to the end. So I'm mentioning that. But a question that I have for you, again, we'll go to this now, I guess. Again, with those theatrical lighting folks, do you think we get to a point where, again, I'm using a school as my example, it's a certain time of the day and maybe a rainstorm is moving in and so there's clouds and so you get the announcement over the loudspeaker, okay, teachers who are on the south side of the building where the sun is facing, I need you to adjust your lights to level 2. And teachers who are on the west side of the building where there's not direct sunlight, I need you to adjust your lighting to level 4 to optimize learning. Like I get, a thing on my phone at night that says, don't forget to turn your alarm clock on. Do you think we get to that point? The data becomes so robust, so vibrant that we're able to teach the untaught how to set their lighting for again, in NICUs, in hospitals, in schools, whatever it might happen to be, just by being able to, again, monitor what's happening in the environment.
So my response to that would be that's where that network lighting controls thing is beautiful, where you could just increase those lights to those spaces without having to ask the teachers. But then the teachers are still able to override them at their switch panel should they choose.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's where the idea of we don't need a switch panel because with set scenes on it. Like, not that the person has to adjust anything, where they just press a button and it's a scene. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And they can set scene setting. And then, the other thing would be to connect to that with the Bluetooth or whatever system, power over, internet over power line or whatever system they use to connect to it. And then there can be a master controlled, which is then either automated or controlled by a master user, where they can make adjustments should they wish to do so. But I don't think... I think the prescriptive and the giving the master of a space control are two competing initiatives that oftentimes are talked about together. So like tunable lighting and circadian lighting are competing initiatives. So offering people tunability and dimmability is not circadian friendly. It may be human centric, right? You understand what I mean? It may be human-centric, but it's not circadian. So circadian is a prescriptive dose of light at certain times. I think we need to abandon the circadian largely. And I can't believe I just said that. But I think the lighting industry should abandon the pursuit of circadian, other than in the areas where it's proven effective for the Alzheimer's patients and in the old folks' homes. And we should abandon it simply because going outside is way more powerful than anything else you can do. getting natural sunshine, getting natural darkness is the most powerful way to entrain your circadian rhythm. And after that, the industry should really focus on giving people tools, simple tools, to be able to control lighting systems based on who's the master of the space, whether that be the head nurse in a NICU ward or the teacher in a classroom or a gymnasium or what have you.
Okay, what about something you're passionate about, which is outdoor lighting?
Mm-hmm.
How much data do we need to collect to get it right, to convince cities, counties, states, countries that they need to adjust their outdoor lighting because they're doing it wrong?
A couple problems. First of all, we can't even measure light pollution. So light pollution is currently in an unmeasurable phenomenon. Okay, most people don't know that. So the satellites that orbit Earth that measure light pollution won't measure above 3,000 Kelvin. So that means all LED lighting pollution is not measurable by the satellites that measure light pollution. So that's the first problem, with the outdoor light. The second problem is that nobody has, as far as I know, and the folks at PNNL, I encourage them. I'd love it. Like, there's nobody better to do this than them. I would love it if they did a network lighting controls program in South Chicago. Take it right to the heat. And see what you can do with outdoor lighting, what the options are, what $1 million could do with network controls, and then see if does light actually decrease crime, or does keyhole to keyhole, high uniformity, high Kelvin, vertically shined prison yard style lighting on people's homes. Does it increase safety? Does it decrease safety? Are there, and then if you could adjust those lights, shield them, warm them, change them, what happens then? And can we measure? Can we reduce vagrancy? Is there different kinds of crimes that we could reduce? What about riots? Are we actually? One of the things that you'll remember from the summer of 2020 was that in the various protests and riots, I think the average American, is concerned about the rioting, but thinks most of the people that were protesting are probably decent Americans that are exercising their, rights under the Constitution to get. But what happens when the sun goes down? Well, the sun doesn't seem to go down, does it, Scott? When you look at the videos, you're seeing people at night in these high brightness, high uniformity, high visual acuity environments, and they're still rioting. So is there a connection, in my mind, I think there might be, between high uniformity, high brightness lighting and the willingness of people to stay out late at night? I think that, in fact, these things are encouraged, that rather than, making people feel like they should go home because it's bright out, like that doesn't make sense. Yeah. Right? Yeah. It's like, well, we have all these streetlights to tell people it's safe. Well, maybe you're actually confusing their natural rhythms of fear and darkness and night, and you're encouraging them to stay out. And then they get caught in the spirit of the mob, and, bad things happen. And we've seen it happen. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what the movement is. Nighttime, people gathering, police issue, you're going to have different kinds of violence and protest. So I actually think that perhaps this lighting is contributing to this kinds of violence, and we could study that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to study that, and I think it's a great point because, again, keep in mind, like you brought up, it's summertime, it's warm, folks have been outside in the daylight for 5, 6, 8, 10 hours. Then it gets dark, but it's not really dark, so more light. Now I'm agitated, and I've been awake for a long time. I've been exposed to a lot of light for a long time. Like you said, I'm getting into the crowd. Is light really?
I'm hungry.
Light on them really? Yeah. Is that really doing me any favors, having more bright light? Or maybe, I see your point. It does seem to make sense.
Yeah. Well, the other premise too is like when police and like when prisons use light, or a police officer uses light, a lot of people don't understand that there's actually a dynamic going on there in that you can see the person, but the person can't see you. So when the police officer walks up to your car at night and shines a flashlight into your car, all you can see is this bright light. You don't know what's happening there. And so the policeman is in a position of superiority over you because of that. When everybody can see clearly, if you can see that the police are over here and your gang of guys are over here and there's no police down there, you know what's going on as much as the police do. And so my own personal theory, a hypothesis, is that this contributes to mob violence. And I'd love to have it studied by a PNNL or one of these great, wonderful institutions that have the ability, knowledge, and people that can do this. So yes.
And I know it's tough. We're asking PNL to do. I'm going to ask PNL to do another one too. I've always had kind of the sorry PNL. I don't jump on this right away. Like, yeah, we have to do so. I've always been a big believer in the data can run a restaurant theory. Like if I had the proper data about how many cars pass my restaurant and how many people come in, and I would know what using data I would know what items on the menu I don't make money on and what I go on and on. Why can't I study the lighting to know what the proper lighting is to make people hungry at 4:30 as opposed to 8:30 at night? Why can't I study the lighting in a shopping mall to tell me, yeah, people seem to want to spend money when the lighting is at this level at this time as opposed to that level? You see a lot of stores, the lighting is pretty bright because they want to see the real colors of the real items in the display case. Does that really make people want to spend money, or should the lighting? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to see so many business-related purposes to see what the correct lighting is to make people want to spend more or eat more or, attend more, whatever it is. So I see it as there's just a lot of opportunities to collect a lot more data in a lot more environments to really understand human behavior a little bit more. I mean, do you see that at all? Is that a possibility?
Well, here's what I like to do.
It's a lot.
Well, hey, let's turn it over on its head. Okay? So casinos have known for a very, very long time that if you shine white light in people's eyes, they'll give you their paycheck. Okay? So, like, they've known this, right? So the fact is that there are ways that businesses can figure this out intuitively without needing big studies, okay? So you go to a casino. What's going on in a casino? There's no clocks. There's no windows. There's all sorts of crazy noise and music. And there's tons of vertical, bright lighting shining in your eyes, okay? That's the characteristic of every casino, all right? Why do they do this? Well, we know it works. So what is the opposite of that, right? So what is the goal? So you know that if you pass by a Cartier shop and it's not in a criminal city and it's dark at night, you're going to see this huge white display shining vertical light onto the items, not out at the person, but onto the items.
Onto the items, right.
Right? And so that these items are just jumping out of that display case at you, right? Cartier doesn't need a study from PNNL to know that works, right?
Right.
And so the question becomes, I don't think we need to do so much work for the corporations other than to provide them with the tools to do it easily and affordably. If we give them these tools, they will try them out for themselves and they'll get that figured out. Where I think we need PNNL is for the resolution of social and health issues. And so that's where I think they can really contribute in places that don't work that way, are not motivated by profit, that don't have an inherent desire to, get money from their sales or whatever. So things like schools, hospitals, things where the last thing they're thinking about is this, and then you come along with this wonderful solution for waking up the moms and the babies and for getting rid of people at the end of visiting hours and all this kind of thing, right? And so you have those tools. That's where I think the lighting industry training is needed. You need a combination of product agnostic training and specific product training together, right? So one thing is, this is how it works scientifically, engineering-wise, and installation and commissioning. And here's a product that will do that. Here's another product that will do that. This one's cheaper. This one's more expensive, whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And so those combinations will give people those tools. But I think where we need PNNL is to research the social areas where nobody's making a buck.
Yeah,
that would be
sense.
mine.
Yeah. And you talked about, in one of our past streams, about commoditizing. Mm-hmm. Does this fall under that? Again, will that end up falling underneath that a little bit?
It has to be.
Hey, you know what?
Commodity, everyone hates the word. It's misused. Okay? If we didn't have an agreement on how long a piece of 10-foot conduit was and what the thickness of the steel was and how bendable it was, we wouldn't be able to build anything. Okay? So commoditization is actually the goal of this. And what commoditization does is delivers you the equity piece, right? So people are because people aren't going to have access. Poor communities won't have access to dark sky lighting. Well, if we make it cheap and easy, they will. Okay, and so the goal shouldn't be to subsidize, you know, areas that are in poverty with $700 light fixtures or $1,100 connected lighting. It should be to make it as cheap as possible. That it's a no-brainer for everyone to do this. And that's what I think. I think that the commoditization is how we distribute all these wonderful innovations to everybody. Now, when it comes to tunable lighting, it's with switch boxes with easy default scene settings on them, or programmed by the installer. So yes, I mean the way we do this is to commoditize it. Absolutely, for sure.
Right.
Sorry, everybody.
I loved. No, it's it's just the truth. I loved that the PNNL used, back to the school stuff, that they used 2 classrooms that were students who were on the spectrum, because that's, I don't know how many students were in the class, but everybody's got a different personality. Everybody's got different issues when you're in the spectrum. No
Sure.
2 are probably the same. So where do you think, give me a time frame when you see this coming into mass development, mass acceptance, mass usage, in terms of, hey, this is going to take a little time. I'm not saying that every school is going to be out. We studied 3 classrooms. So we're not talking about, okay, by the beginning of the school year in 2023, 12 months from now, we're going to be, I don't see that. But can you see someplace down the road where there is sort of a massive acceptance of this data-driven lighting in schools, in hospitals, outside? How long do you envision this is all going to take?
I've often said that tuning in 2022 is like dimming in 1967. Okay, once it catches on, it will catch fire. I believe that. Now, there's a lot of things the industry has to work out. One is intercompatibility between manufacturers. That's a major problem. People have to be able to walk into Home Depot, know that they have tunable light fixtures, and buy the Leviton LV600 tunable dimmer, and just pull it off the wall, put it in, and that's it.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to connect it with Bluetooth or whatever you have to do, but after that it works. The industry has to agree on the protocols, how we're going to do this. And then we have to enforce those protocols so that, again, you can't, without protocols, you're never going to have commoditization. Without commoditization, you're never going to have mass distribution to the people.
Yeah.
And so we have some barriers to entry. We have a lot of sole source, custom made, this manufacturer only stuff out there, individual protocols, and everybody's wasting their time building software instead of building lighting equipment, right? They're all hiring software companies, and they're it's like, instead of building lighting equipment, there should be just a set protocol set up by the Lighting and Controls Association. Sorry to pull those guys out, but I love the people at the Lighting and Controls Association. Say, look, our protocol is SP201. Everybody use SP201. Forget about it. It'll be developed by a association, and our board of directors will make all the decision. And you guys get back to making and selling light fixtures and dimmers and equipment, and settle it. And once that was, listen, I talked to a guy the other day that does internet over power line. Internet over power line can only deliver 16 bytes of information. But you know what? You get 1 million different configurations with 16 bytes. 1 million different lighting controls commands. Yeah. Okay? So you can control the first Canadian place with 16 bits of information. Okay? Or whatever, you're in Missouri, whatever the Arch Light City or whatever, you can control it. You don't need that much horsepower. And so maybe it's internet over power line, maybe it's Bluetooth, maybe it's 0 to 10 volt. I don't know, but we got to agree on it and then allow manufacturers to cross-sell to one another in a secondary parts market to come up so that people can buy a $26 dimmer, tuner dimmer, and just put it in and it works.
Yeah. It's, we're really pushing at the association. We're really pushing with TED Magazine being a data-driven business. You have the data, look at it differently, look at it the same way you have been, but make decisions based on the data. So I'm excited about, data-driven lighting. It just seems to make sense. Why wouldn't you use the data to determine, the correct lighting for all of these opportunities? So Great show. I mean, I was really excited by it.
Oh, that was amazing. I always
Yeah.
love Andrea
Yeah.
Wilkerson, and then Sarah was wonderful too. But you know what? I would say that to me, and for what it's worth, my 2 cents, internet over
Mhm.
power line seems to make the most sense. If our goal is to deploy to
Yeah.
existing lighting equipment, so a switch is already segregated to the light fixtures it controls. If you can just push in an internet over power line plug and screw in internet over power line tunable light bulbs, the game is over.
Right.
Everybody can do that today, right? They don't have to change their light fixture. If you can do that and you have
Yeah.
a single protocol across the board to handle that, you will kick ass and take names. It will be everywhere before you can say Jack Robinson.
What's the fight over that? I mean, why is that, sort of not widely used, for lack of a better term? Why is it not adopted?
I couldn't tell you. I've interviewed a couple people about internet over power line,
Yeah.
and Greg Galuccio. Maybe I interviewed him twice. He's been talking about this for a long time, and I just think that people are very seduced by these crazy user experience stuff they get on Facebook and Google with Angular and React and all these heavy, like the software itself is 3 gigs. You know what I mean? Never mind the actual code that
Yeah.
runs it. And so I think people are overly seduced with the user experience when what they really need is simple commands from a dimmer switch on the wall. You know what I'm saying? And they're
Oh, yeah,
making it's
absolutely.
being
Yeah.
made too complicated. It doesn't need to be this complicated.
Well, good stuff. I appreciate you bringing this one up. You saved the best for last, but it was really a great conversation. Not that all of them weren't great; they were all great
Yeah, sure.
conversations. So, again, thanks for bringing this stuff up, and I appreciate you doing this through TED Magazine. These 5 episodes.
Thank you, Scott, for having us. To be honest with you,
That was great.
yeah, it goes both ways there. Thank
Looking
you.
forward to more.
Yeah, thank you, the listener. You're the most important piece in all this, our wonderful audience. We always say that we don't have an audience or listeners. We just have colleagues that don't do podcasts. We've said that many times. Thank you for listening to the Technical Update series, and let's not forget that it's brought to you by the good folks at Cooper Lighting. Go to COOPERLIGHTING.com. Bye for now.